Hello! 2022 was an interesting year. I'm gonna be that guy and say I didn't adore this year like others did. Oh, it was definitely a good year. I gave out several fives. But there wasn't a movie this year that reached the capacity for me that Come On, or The Worst Person in the World, or even Sound of Metal gave to me. Like movies that completely changed the way I view film. It was good enough for me to do a top 15 though, and it was a really hard list to make because there were a lot of movies that I thought were really good that I loved. And I do have some takes. And what people need to understand is this list is subjective. There is no such thing as objectivity when it comes to art on my channel. If you don't like that, make your own list. If you do not like my list, make your own list. Also, I should probably mention I did not see everything. I did not see Broker, EO, Living, all movies I feel I would love, so if I see them and I love them, I will update on Letterboxd. Also, there were a couple movies that I saw in 2022 that don't get a full release until 2023, like Kelly Reichardt's Showing Up. I saw it at the New York Film Festival, and it would definitely be in my top 5, but it doesn't release officially until 2023. So consider that my favorite movie of 2023 so far. Alright, here are my honorable mentions. Like I said, this list was very hard to make because holy shit, Nope is a goddamn spectacle. It honestly pains me not to put this higher. There are just movies this year that resonate with me more on an emotional level, but this has gotta be some of the best filmmaking I've seen for a horror movie at least. Especially in terms of its sound design. The way he uses silence to help elevate the tension felt like something I haven't seen many movies do, at least not as effective as this. I don't want to spoil obviously, but it's terrifying. The way he's able to take advantage of the cinematography, the size and scope of the location, the fact that it takes place in the middle of nowhere, makes it feel like there's nowhere to run to because no matter what, someone will always see you. And aside from all of that, Jordan Peele tackles the themes of trauma and grief in a way that felt not only cohesive to the story, but I just don't see the story working without it. It was handled beautifully, blending that terrifying elements of the film with elements that are surprisingly emotional, with brilliant performances by Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer. This movie rocks, and Logan Paul can fuck right off. Women Talking is without a doubt the angriest movie of the year, but it is so passionate about that anger and it never lets its guard down. That's what makes this so great. That's what makes this so captivating. This movie is so careful with its writing and how it develops each character, but then grows more impatient with it in a good way. Every argument between these women needs to be heard, and each one makes so much sense. They can all agree on one thing that's bringing them all together, but the way each person thinks they should react all feels so different from one another. But you basically side with anyone here. Women Talking is gutting, especially with performances as powerful as these, and a script as brutally honest and angry as this. It also contains one of my favorite scenes of the year that I just wish they would have ended the whole movie on because it was perfect. Cha-Cha Real Smooth I think is charming beyond belief, and it was the only movie to make me cry when I saw it at Sundance. And it's not even just because I relate to it, but the thing is I always find it so cheesy when someone says, "Oh, I love this movie because it just felt so real." I think it's just because it feels like they don't know what else to say about it. Cha-Cha Real Smooth feels real. There's something in here for anyone. And while some may not totally relate, There's always a character that you can latch on to. It's all executed so wonderfully. I needed something this sweet and heartwarming, and Cha Cha Real Smooth just felt like a warm hug. It is just so unfathomably nice, it's legitimately impossible to hate. This is a new comfort movie. Park Chan-wook's decision to leave is easily one of the most engaging movies of the year, even if I don't really see myself rewatching it that many times, because first off, I do think it is a bit overlong, and also, while it is engaging, it's simultaneously so heartbreaking, but it's still something to truly behold. It's easily the best genre bending of the year. The first half, Park Chan-wook feels so playful with his direction. He's clearly having so much fun, and it's so infectious. But when he takes the emotional turn, it feels so genuine and earned. Part of that is due to the writing. This is such a creatively done story with so many layers. It's so much fun to see this unfold, but it also has to do with the performances. These are two of the best performances of the whole year, with the standout being Tang Wei, I hope I said that right, who honestly reminded me so much of Kim Novak in Vertigo. Her performance is haunting, the entire movie is haunting, and fun, and funny, and I don't know, man, this movie rocks. Oh, I can already hear your jaws hitting the floor. Everyone expected this to be higher. I kept flip-flopping with this or Decision to Leap or this spot, but it just kinda came down to which would I watch more often. People who know me know that I am obsessed with this movie. What happened was this year just continued, and I just found more movies that I like a little more, but it's still a 5 out of 5 movie for me regardless, and I'm still obsessed with it. I even got the Blu-ray. This is easily one of the most fun experiences I've had in a theater all year, and it's already one of my favorite comedies. I can't watch this and not just cry laughing because of the sheer commitment of everyone here, especially Rachel Sennett, who I'm convinced is one of the funniest people working right now. Her line delivery is top notch, holy shit, but the way the satire was executed was just so clever to me. I'm not gonna spoil exactly what happens, but this is exactly how a whodunit would play out in real life. This is exactly how anyone their age would react in this situation, and then you take all those elements and you use it to build and build and build to an ending that is so goddamn hilarious and shocking. Goddamn, this movie is so good. It may be higher. I've never really found Martin McDonagh's movies to be pure comedies as much as other people do. Not to say the Banshees of Inisherin doesn't have any funny moments, it absolutely does, but when you get to the core of it, this is probably the most heartbreaking movie he's ever made, and that's honestly saying so much. If there's one thing McDonagh is a master at, it's reeling you in and not letting you go. He gets your attention by letting the humorous elements take its course, and then when you least expect it, it hits you with the emotions. And he makes sure that the emotional elements are heart-wrenching. We've all been through the confusion and sadness that Colin Farrell's character has gone through, and even though we're laughing at some of the things he does, we can't help but to see a little bit of ourselves in his despair. We can't help but to see a little bit of ourselves in Carrie Condon's frustration with this whole situation, and how she's unfairly in the middle of everything. And these two, especially Farrell, give easily some of the best performances of the year. Brendan Gleeson was great too, and this movie makes me depressed. Let's move on. I did a video on this movie, and I'm honestly pretty proud of it, so go check that out. But if there's one thing Kogonada is a master at, it's capturing the human connection as authentic and beautiful as he can. And after Yang, he captures the human connection with someone that isn't even human. Yang is an AI, and this entire movie plays out like a memory to show everyone how much this AI impacted everyone around him. There's this sense of emptiness throughout the entire film without the presence of Yang, and everyone within the film knows that. This is the beauty of After Yang. It's very simplistic in its story and its themes, but it still leaves a huge impact, and it's a film that anyone can resonate with in some way. It doesn't try to hammer in those themes, it doesn't try to shove the emotions down your throat, it's just trying to show you how anything can leave an impact on you. This is Kogonada's second film, and he's only proving that he knows how to make art feel truly transcendental. I'm not a Spielberg fanboy. I don't hate him, I totally get why he's an icon in cinema, but not a lot of his movies have truly left an emotional impact on me as much as he wants them to. That is until I saw Fabelmans. Fabelmans truly felt like something truly special and something I can relate to instantly when the movie started. I know The Fabelmans isn't the be-all end-all of filmmaking we have this year, but sometimes all I want is just something grounded in reality and something I can totally relate to. I like movies that feel personal and feel like they speak to me, and this movie more than just did that for me. There are moments here that reminded me so much of my own childhood that I couldn't help but to get emotional, especially when it came to Michelle Williams as the mother character, who reminded me so much of my own mother that it was actually insane. This is easily one of the most moving films I've seen all year for me, and also, despite how grounded in reality this is, one of the more entertaining movies of this year. Sure, it's cheesy and sentimental, but at the same time, I could have spent hours with this family. In such different ways, they're also interesting, and even if you can see where some story beats are going, it's impossible not to feel something. God, I love movies. Dude, hell yeah. Just hell yeah. Tar is such a ride, but it's such a different kind of ride. A ride that's on one hand intense in a rather subtle way, and on the other hand, so weirdly hilarious, and it feels like it's calling out everyone that's watching. Like, I'm pretty positive this movie thinks I'm stupid, but I'm kind of just sitting there going like, you know what, maybe I am. And if that isn't weird enough, the movie never blatantly talks down to the viewer. The movie never felt pretentious, even though it's presenting to us quite possibly the most pretentious character of all time, Lydia Tarr, who is such an awful person, but also one of the most interesting characters we've had in years, and that's because Cate Blanchett knew exactly how to present this character. When people say Cate Blanchett is brilliant in this movie, they're kinda understating it. She is fascinatingly good. She commands every single second of this movie, and makes this character feel so believable. Lydia Tarr is so despicable, but you can't help but to listen to every word that she says, because her mind moves so aggressively fast. Dear Lord, the writing for this movie is genius. That sound design too, Come on, man. Come on. The first of two ties. This has been a pretty great year for comedy in my opinion, so I'm doing a tie of my two favorite comedies of the year. Let's start with Weird. The musical biopic is starting to overstay its welcome. They're all formulaic and pretty contrived. Weird, the Al Yankovic story, understands that completely, and it's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my life. I don't think I've laughed this hard at a movie in years, and that's because it does what every comedy needs to do. Comedy 101, take nothing seriously. You are here to be a fucking goofball, so goof. And Weird Al doesn't just goof, he makes his whole life a joke. The second time I saw this movie, I felt like I missed so many more jokes than when I saw it the first time. Just when you think this can't get any more ridiculous, it just tops itself. There are scenes where characters are introduced, and when their scene is done, another character just beats the shit out of them for no reason. It's amazing. This movie knows exactly what it is and how it needs to present that. This is one of my new favorite comedies. And so is Brian and Charles. I don't want to spend too long on this because I don't want to spoil much, but Brian and Charles I think is my pick for the most underrated movie of the year. It's definitely one of the most underrated comedies in the past few years. It's so creative in its style, and that creativity never lets up. It's filmed as if it's some kind of mockumentary, but it goes in directions that you wouldn't expect. And by that I mean this movie is ridiculous. And it has so much fun with its concept, and it's aware of its ridiculousness. I love it. Most of the jokes hit absolute bullseyes for me, and just seeing how the absurdity unfolds was honestly hilarious in of itself. It's also one of the most beautiful looking movies of the year and has one of the most unique scores of the year. I just don't really want to spoil this for you guys, so I'll end it here, just watch it. Everything Everywhere All at Once does so much all at once, but I can't imagine a movie like this working had it not been like that. It's something that I can only describe as a cinematic anomaly, as pretentious as that sounds, but I honestly don't think there's a better way to describe it. For every out of the ordinary, incredible thing this movie gives to you, it always brings us back to its main message, and that's the fact that we need to be kind always. Not just in this universe, in any universe we need to be kind, because the world is scary and weird enough already, and it's up to us to be the difference we want to see. Most films would just automatically shift tones to portray their message / emotional elements, but the Daniels keep their weird / comedic tone throughout this entire thing, even when portraying their emotional elements, and it still manages to be effective and somehow relatable, and that's what makes Everything Everywhere All at Once so special. It stays true to itself and never breaks that mold. It even literally feels like it's everything and everywhere all at once, as cheesy as that sounds. But hey, it also has some of the coolest action scenes ever, so no matter how weird this movie is, this movie can be for anyone. I honestly wasn't prepared for what Marcel the Shell had to offer. I knew it would be cute and wholesome going in, but I wasn't prepared for just how much was going to be in this movie. I didn't expect this to be a continuation of scenes where I just struggled to figure out how they pulled this off with stop motion animation, especially considering it's stop motion mixed with live action. It's mind blowing to me how creative they went with this. The opening 10 minutes alone has probably 5 moments where I was struggling to figure out how they pulled off this animation as well as they did. And when I'm not being floored by the animation, I'm crying due to this movie's giant heart. Like, dude, you didn't have to go this fucking hard on fucking Marcel the Shell. But this movie isn't amazing because Marcel is just so cute. It's amazing because of its creativity. I could tell that they wanted everything to feel real, and they wanted us to love Marcel the way Jenny Slate and Dean Fleischer Camp love Marcel. And that amount of love and care that's in this movie was infectious to me. I'm not just saying this because I'm pretty much known for having a soft spot for wholesome cathartic movies. The wholesomeness didn't feel forced, it came naturally. And being able to be sucked into Marcel the Shell's world with its really cool documentary-esque cinematography, surprisingly amazing sound design, I was floored by just how much detail went into the sound, the incredible effects that all felt so real, and especially the score by Disasterpiece, which might be my favorite score of the year. I honestly don't understand how anyone could not like this. When I first saw this at the New York Film Festival, I was legitimately speechless. I didn't know how to talk about it, not because I didn't understand it, but because I was so overwhelmed with emotion that I felt like if I did talk about it, I would be talking through my tears. Charlotte Wells tells a story of depression from the perspective of a child who doesn't fully understand it, but she's watching her parent clearly suffer through it, and Wells somehow manages to make the audience feel that childhood innocence and naivety. But then as it goes on and once you start to put the pieces together of what's really going on, it becomes kind of hard to watch because you have a speculation of what's going to happen and you're just waiting for it to happen. It becomes devastating beyond belief. It's so brutal and honest in how it depicts depression. It's much easier to hide your emotions than you may think. especially when you feel most like a burden. Sometimes you just want whoever you're with or even yourself to have fun, but that's much harder than it seems. It's easier yet more painful to just act. Paul Mescal captures that depression beautifully. He easily gives the best performance of the year without question. I'm about to get emotional. Just watch this movie. Much like for comedies, 2022 was an even better year for horror, and I know I probably shocked everyone when I put Pearl at number 2, and as a tie of all things, because I told everyone that Pearl was my number 1 ever since I saw it. Maybe as time goes on it will be my number 1 again, but for now it's at second place as a tie. Pearl, I think, is the closest movie we have, at least of this year, that genuinely has the feel of an older film from the 1920s. Many will probably argue Babylon, but honestly, I feel like Pearl does that older film feel way better than Babylon. And I know me just saying that, Twitter is outside my door with pitchforks, but let me talk, okay? There's a certain kind of nostalgia that I get when watching films made in the 20s or 30s or even the 10s. And within just the opening shot and the opening notes of the musical score of Pearl, I immediately get sucked into the old 1918 film style vibe. I hope this makes sense, but even though the movie is in Technicolor and has sound, this movie wholeheartedly feels like 1918. Not even with just setting, which I will get into, but with just the filmmaking in general. I would kill to be able to see this movie in 35mm, because if I had seen this movie in 35mm, I would have been convinced that this movie is over a century old. And how they handled the setting of the movie to make it feel like the 1910s, there's so much attention to detail to it, it's absurd. Oh, don't get me wrong, the film is fucked up, obviously, but it's presented like it's another Wizard of Oz. A fucked up Wizard of Oz, if you will. Even though this very much feels like a tribute to old classic films, it still has this self-awareness and doesn't shy from its haunting vibe. While there is a charm to classic films, there is also something kind of haunting about them if you think about it. And I think Ty West realized that and portrayed it beautifully with Pearl. With the colors and the warm, cozy setting that the film has, it can be easy to be fooled by its charm, but it's also being as blunt as it can, showing that above everything else, this is a terrifying, heart-wrenching story, and it wants you to be fooled by its charm, so that the disturbing elements feel more disturbing. And of course, add Mia Goth's spectacular performance into the mix, and you get a genius-level slasher movie. I can't get enough of this movie, and I'm happy a lot of people are on my side about it. And here's the second horror movie. Most people probably didn't see this coming. I honestly didn't see it coming until I gave it a rewatch, and this is probably my most controversial pick, but I'd rather be honest and pick something that's an actual favorite than just be dishonest and pick something just to please the audience. When I first saw Resurrection back in January at Sundance, I was blown away. It had been a while since a horror movie had me that hooked and just glued to the screen, just due to the pure weirdness of it all. In any other movie, I feel like this would have been the goofiest thing, and I'm sure for others it is, but the way it's all written by Andrew Simons, even when everything is blatantly explained to us, I still felt that feeling of genuine uncomfortable surprise that very few horror movies give to me. And it still gave me a genuinely horrible feeling by the end of it. I feel like I've been saying you should go into this completely blind towards a lot of movies this year. Well, I think that applies directly to Resurrection. If you go into this knowing nothing, then I feel like you'll have the experience that I had when I first saw this. The best way I can describe the plot without any spoilers is a woman runs into someone from her past who ruined her life, so she tries everything that she can to make sure that her daughter is safe. Please believe that doesn't come close to scratching the surface of what this movie is. It's one of the weirdest and craziest movies I've ever seen in my life, no hyperbole. Rebecca Hall gives one of the best performances of the year. Hell, she should be getting recognition for her monologue alone. Just get this a watch and let the insanity wash over you. When I saw this at Sundance, I immediately watched it again. 2022, like I said, was an interesting year, and I guarantee you that almost no one has Montana Story as their number one. I guarantee not a lot of people have even heard of Montana Story, but if there's any movie this year that's just tailor-made for me on an emotional level, then Montana Story just checks all the boxes for me. You might watch this and not feel how I feel, and that's fine, but I think your favorite movie of the year should be the movie that stuck with you the most, and that's definitely Montana Story for me. I tried really hard to make a video for this movie, but I never got around to finishing that video, because I felt like nothing I could have said could describe the beauty of this movie justice. In fact, I felt like I was understating how this movie made me feel when I watched it for the first time. First off, in case you don't know, this is a movie about two estranged siblings returning to the ranch they grew up in after a family tragedy occurs. I know that story on the surface might sound pretty depressing, and it is, but directors Scott McGee and David Siegel do everything they can to make this such a beautiful experience. First off, in terms of how they act, it was kind of jarring in figuring out how much I see myself in the character of Cal, and how much I see my actual sister in the character of Erin. That in of itself added to the beauty of this movie, but I can't really explain why without spoiling, and also this review would be 3 hours long. Second, I love movies that pay attention to the location, and they go as far to make the setting of Montana a character in of itself. The first thing that caught my attention, minus the emotional core, was just how the scale and location of the movie played such an important role. The scale is huge, you can see everything, but the location is empty. You get these really huge shots of these Montana plains, but there's not much more to it than that. This whole movie has a very empty, lonely feel to it, and it's meant to put you in the perspective of our main characters, Cal and Erin, two people returning to a place that ruined them mentally due to a pretty dire circumstance, and thus they officially view it as nothing anymore, one more so than the other, and as that goes along, you start to see their denials, the frustrations, the confusions, and it just starts to get devastating, but it's a beautiful kind of sadness. A sadness that I feel only the power of movies can give to me. And Montana Story to me reminded me why I love movies like this, and it felt like pure poetry.